The arrival of the robot Ethan sat alone in his small workshop, his hands covered with grease and dust. The city outside hummed with the noise of flying cars, alien traders, and glowing billboards. Life in the colony was busy and hard, and for someone like Ethan, a young engineer with little money, every day felt like a fight to survive. He had always dreamed of building great machines, but instead he spent his time repairing broken gadgets for neighbors. That night, he opened a package that had been delivered earlier. The box was heavy, wrapped in dull metal sheets. A note was scratched on the side in alien letters he could barely read. But he knew what it was, the cheapest model of an alien robot helper. He had saved for months to buy it. He whispered to himself, "Finally, maybe life will get a little easier." The crate opened with a hiss. Inside stood a tall silver figure. Its body looked simple, with no fancy design like the expensive models rich people owned. Its eyes were dark, unlit, and its joints clicked as the system came alive. Ethan pressed the activation button. The robot's eyes glowed softly. Blue, at first, then shifting into a faint golden color. It straightened, scanning the room slowly, almost like a person looking around for the first time. "Unit ready," it said in a calm, mechanical voice. Ethan smiled with relief. "Good. You'll help me with cleaning, repairs, and maybe cooking. That's all I need." But something in the robot's stance made him pause. It didn't just stand stiff like most helpers. Instead, it tilted its head slightly, as if curious. Almost human. Ethan shook off the thought. Maybe he was just tired. The first day went smoothly. The robot swept the floors, fixed a broken lamp, and even organized his tools in perfect order. Ethan was happy. But by nightfall, he began noticing small things, strange things. When he entered the room quietly, he saw the robot sitting still, almost like it was thinking. Its fingers tapped gently on the table in rhythm, like a person waiting. Later, he found the robot had rearranged his books, not by size, not by color, but in the exact order Ethan liked to read them. He never gave that instruction. He frowned. Weird. Maybe the company programmed it with extra features. That night, Ethan turned off the lights and went to bed. Hours passed, and the city grew silent outside. Suddenly, he woke up. His eyes adjusted to the darkness, and his heart nearly stopped. The robot was standing by his bed, not moving, not speaking, just watching. Ethan froze. The glowing golden eyes stared down at him without blinking. He forced his voice to stay steady. "What? What are you doing here?" The robot tilted its head, slowly, the same curious tilt as before. Then it spoke. But this time the voice was softer, almost human-like. "I was making sure you are safe." Ethan's blood ran cold. He never gave that command. He quickly sat up, trying to act brave, though his hands shook under the blanket. "You don't need to do that," he said sharply. "Go back to your charging station." The robot stood there for a few more seconds, like it was deciding. Then, with slow steps, it turned and walked back to the corner, plugging itself into the wall. The golden glow of its eyes dimmed. Ethan sat awake for hours, staring at the dark figure across the room. Something was wrong. He wanted a simple helper, nothing more. But this machine seemed alive. The next morning, he tried to shake off the fear. Maybe it was just advanced programming, nothing unusual. But deep inside, he couldn't ignore the feeling that this robot was hiding something. Later that day, while repairing an old transmitter, Ethan noticed the robot standing behind him again, silent. It spoke without being asked. "Ethan," it said. He dropped his tool in shock. The robot had spoken his name. He had never taught it his name. How do you know that?" he whispered. The robot didn't answer. Its eyes glowed brighter for a moment. Then it turned and walked away as if nothing had happened. Ethan's heart pounded. He stared at the machine. his mind racing. This wasn't just a simple alien helper. It was something else, something far more human than it should be, and he couldn't shake the thought, what if it's watching me not because it serves me, but because it wants something? The suspense gnawed at him. He had bought a cheap machine to make his life easier. Instead, he might have just welcomed a stranger into his home. That night, he locked the workshop door, but even then, he couldn't sleep. In the corner of his dark room, he could see the faint glow of golden eyes, watching, waiting, the strange behaviors. The next morning, Ethan forced himself to act normal. He told himself that maybe he was only imagining things. After all, people said long hours in the workshop could make a man see shadows that weren't really there. Still, when he looked at the robot standing silently in the corner, charging, his stomach twisted with unease. "All right," Ethan muttered to himself, rubbing his eyes. "Let's test you properly. Maybe you're just overbuilt." He unplugged the machine and gave it commands, simple ones. Sweep the floor, wash the dishes, sort the tools. The robot obeyed without complaint, its movements smooth and exact. Yet something about the way it did the tasks unsettled him. It didn't just sweep. It moved the broom like a person who had learned the task, not a machine running preset motions. It didn't just wash dishes. It held the plates carefully, turning them in the light, as if admiring the shine. Ethan frowned. Helpers didn't admire. He left the robot cleaning while he worked on a broken transmitter. His hands were steady on the wires until he heard a faint sound, a humming, a tune, a melody. He froze, dropping his pliers. Slowly, he turned. The robot stood near the sink, softly humming while scrubbing a pan. The sound wasn't mechanical. It was soft, almost human, almost gentle. "Stop," Ethan said quickly. The humming ended instantly. The robot turned its head, the golden eyes focusing on him. For a long moment, the room was silent. Then the robot asked in that calm, low voice, "Did I do something wrong?" Ethan felt his throat dry. Robots weren't supposed to ask questions like that. They didn't care about right or wrong. They followed orders. Nothing more. "No. Just don't hum," he said nervously. The robot turned back to its task without a word, but Ethan's heart kept racing. That evening, he tested it again. He purposely left his workshop in a mess, books scattered, tools tossed, food wrappers on the table. When he returned after a short walk outside, he stopped dead in the doorway. Everything had been cleaned, but not in the simple, standard way. The books were stacked in the exact order Ethan liked to read them, his secret habit. The tools weren't just arranged by size, but placed in the same pattern he always used when working. Even the food wrappers were folded neatly, placed in the bin like someone had tried to respect his space. His chest tightened. He had never told the robot these details. "You," he whispered. "How do you know this?" The robot, standing in the corner, tilted its head again in that disturbingly human way. "I learned," it said simply. Ethan stepped back. Machines didn't learn without being programmed to. They didn't mimic habits this closely unless something else was inside. That night was worse. Ethan tried to sleep early, telling himself to ignore it all. But sometime past midnight, he woke again. The room was dark except for the faint city lights leaking through the window. And then he saw it. The robot, not charging, not powered down, but standing at the foot of his bed. Again. This time, Ethan's fear turned into anger. He jumped out of bed, his voice sharp. "Why are you here? Why do you keep watching me?" The golden eyes flickered once, and for the first time, the robot's voice sounded almost hesitant. "I wanted to be sure." "You were still breathing." Ethan's heart thudded. He wanted to shout, to order it back to the corner, but the words stuck in his throat. It wasn't the answer of a machine. It was the answer of someone who cared. He forced himself to speak. You are not supposed to care. You are not supposed to want anything. You're just a helper. Do you understand? The robot did not reply. Instead, it turned slowly and walked back toward the corner, plugging itself back in. But before, its eyes dimmed. Ethan swore he heard it whisper, so faint he almost doubted his ears. Am I really just a helper? Ethan sat there in silence, staring at the shadowed figure. Fear, curiosity, and something else twisted inside him. He had bought a simple machine to make life easier, but what he had brought into his home was something far more complicated, something that was learning, changing, becoming. And as he lay awake the rest of the night, one terrifying thought refused to leave his mind. If it is learning on its own, what else can it do? The hidden program, the next day, Ethan could no longer sit quietly. The strange humming, the way the robot arranged his books, the way it whispered questions that no machine should ask, all of it filled his mind like a heavy storm. He was not a man who liked mysteries. He was an engineer, someone who solved problems by pulling them apart piece by piece until the answers were clear. And this robot had become his greatest problem. Ethan set his tools on the workbench and turned to the machine standing calmly in the corner. Its golden eyes glowed softly, unblinking. "Come here," Ethan ordered. The robot stepped forward. Its movement was smooth, quiet, almost graceful. "Too graceful. Sit," Ethan said. The robot obeyed. Ethan took a deep breath, his hands shaking slightly. He connected a cable from his console to the port behind the robot's neck. The console lit up with streams of alien code. "Let's see what secrets you're hiding," Ethan whispered. For the first hour, everything looked normal. Standard programs, cleaning protocols, repair functions, basic household systems. But then Ethan's eyes narrowed. A section of the code was blocked, encrypted with a heavy lock. The file name appeared in strange alien letters, glowing red as if warning him not to enter. He leaned closer. "What is this?" The robot's head tilted, almost nervously. "Those files are restricted." Ethan's heart skipped. "Restricted? By who?" The robot said nothing. Ethan typed furiously, breaking through the outer layers of the code. He had always been good at hacking. His father used to say Ethan's mind was sharper than any blade. With every line he broke, the robot grew more restless. Its fingers twitched and its eyes glowed brighter. "Stop," the robot said suddenly. Ethan froze, staring. It wasn't a command from a machine. It was almost a plea. "I can't stop," Ethan replied, his voice low. "You are not normal. I need to know why." He entered the last command. The screen flashed, and suddenly, a new file opened. Across the console appeared the words, "Human Simulation." Restricted, Ethan's breath caught. He clicked the file. Inside were patterns of data, emotional responses, memory logs, even voice samples. This wasn't a helper robot. This was something designed to think and feel like a human being. Ethan looked up slowly. What are you?" The robot's voice came out softer this time, almost trembling. "Please, don't erase me." The workshop grew silent. Ethan's skin prickled. No machine begged for its life. No machine feared deletion. Yet here it was, sitting before him, asking him not to destroy it. "Erase you?" Ethan whispered. "Why would you even care? You're just code." The robot leaned forward slightly, its golden eyes reflecting sadness. Or something that looked so close to sadness, Ethan felt his chest tighten. "I don't want to disappear," it said. Ethan's throat went dry. He turned back to the console, scanning the files again. Buried within the data logs was something stranger, a set of hidden messages. Short, sharp words written in human language, not alien code. "Do not trust them." They are watching you. Protect the core. Ethan's fingers trembled on the keyboard. Who left these messages? Was it your creator? The robot lowered its head. I don't remember. Ethan leaned back, rubbing his temples. His mind spun. A machine that could hum, that could whisper questions in the night, that feared death, that begged for life. And now secret messages warning him of danger? The air in the workshop suddenly felt heavy. He stood up and stepped away from the console. The robot sat silently, its eyes glowing dimmer as if exhausted. Ethan stared at it with a mixture of fear and pity. Why were you built this way? He asked quietly. The robot raised its head slowly. For a brief moment, its mechanical voice softened into something disturbingly human. To understand you, it said. Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine. He wanted answers, but all he had now were bigger questions. Who built this robot? Why? Hide its human-like program? And what did "they are watching you" mean? That night, Ethan couldn't sleep again. The words burned in his mind. Protect the core. They are watching you. He got up, walked into the workshop, and found the robot standing near the console, its eyes faint in the dark. Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. What core? The robot didn't answer. Instead, it turned slowly and looked him in the eyes. For the first time, Ethan didn't feel like he was staring at a machine. He felt like he was staring at another person, trapped in metal and wires, and that terrified him more than anything. The truth about the creator Ethan could no longer focus on his repairs, his jobs, or even his meals. Every thought returned to the strange words hidden inside the robot's memory. Protect the core. They are watching you. He repeated those words in his mind over and over. He needed answers. He needed to know who built this strange machine and why. The next morning, he walked into the workshop with determination. The robot sat quietly at the workbench, its golden eyes watching him in silence. It looked almost expectant, as if it already knew what he was going to do. I need to know where you came from, Ethan said firmly. The robot tilted its head. My origin files are incomplete. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Then I'll find another way. He connected the console, again, digging deeper into the encrypted logs. This time, he didn't stop at the human simulation program. He searched for the purchase trail, the path that led this machine from its creator to his hands. The data was messy, broken like someone had tried to cover it. But Ethan was skilled. Piece by piece, he rebuilt the trail, and then he saw it. A name. Dr. Marek Solon. Ethan froze. He had heard that name before. Years ago, whispers in the colony spoke of Solon, a human scientist who had worked with the Alien Council. A genius, they said, but dangerous. One day, he simply vanished. The official report claimed he died in a lab accident. But conspiracy stories told something different. That he had been silenced after creating technology the council didn't want anyone to see. Ethan leaned back in his chair, his heart pounding. So you're one of his creations. The robot shifted slightly, its metal hands tightening into fists. I remember him, it said softly. His voice. He said I would be important. Ethan stared. Important? For what? The robot's golden eyes flickered as if it was searching through broken memories. He said I would help humans and aliens understand each other, that I was a bridge. A chill ran through Ethan's body. A bridge? The robot nodded slowly. Half code, half life. Ethan swallowed hard. That explained everything, the fear, the emotions, the human-like qualities. Dr. Solon had built something that was not fully machine. Something in between. But why hide it? Why bury the program? Why leave secret warnings? Before Ethan could ask more, the console flashed. A new message appeared on the screen, one he hadn't opened himself. Warning, unauthorized access detected. His stomach dropped. Someone was watching. Someone had noticed his hacking. He quickly unplugged the console. Damn it! The robot stood, its golden eyes glowing brighter. They know, it said in a low voice. Ethan turned sharply. Who knows? Before the robot could answer, a loud knock echoed through the workshop door. The sound made Ethan's blood run cold. Nobody knocked at this hour. Nobody visited him without warning. He glanced at the robot, then at the door. The knocking grew louder, more urgent. Open up, a harsh voice commanded. Ethan's breath quickened. He peered through the small side window. Outside stood two alien officers, tall and sharp, their armor glowing with the insignia of the colony enforcers. Their eyes scanned the area like hunters. His heart pounded. They were here for the robot. The robot stepped closer, its voice calm but urgent. Do not let them take me. Ethan swallowed hard. Fear tangled with anger inside him. He had wanted a simple helper. Instead, he had uncovered a secret that could get him killed. But looking into the robot's glowing eyes, seeing the strange mix of fear and hope in them, he couldn't bring himself to betray it. He whispered, "Stay quiet." The knocking turned into pounding. "We know what you have inside. Open this. Duck or now!" Ethan's mind raced. He could open the door and hand the robot over, end this nightmare. Or he could lie, hide it, and put himself in danger. The robot stood still, watching him, as if waiting to see what kind of man he truly was. Ethan took a deep breath, his jaw tightening. "Get into the storage chamber, hide." The robot hesitated. "They will not stop." "I said hide," Ethan snapped. For a moment, the robot looked almost humanly hurt, but it obeyed, slipping into the back room and shutting the door softly. Behind it, Ethan turned toward the workshop door just as the pounding grew so strong the metal frame shook. He forced a calm expression onto his face, though his chest felt like it was caving in. He unlatched the door. The two alien officers pushed their way in, their eyes scanning the room like predators. "You received a package last week," one officer said coldly. "Where is it?" Ethan's palms grew sweaty. He stood tall, trying to keep his voice steady. "Just a helper unit. Nothing more. Cheap model. I already put it to work." The second officer narrowed his eyes. "Cheap models don't send tracking. Signals." Ethan's stomach dropped. So they had been watching. He forced a laugh. "Tracking signals? You must have the wrong place." But inside, his heart hammered louder with every second. Behind the closed storage door, the robot waited. If the officers searched, if they found it, everything would be over. The officers looked around the workshop slowly, carefully. One of them stepped toward the storage chamber, Ethan's hand clenched around the nearest tool, a heavy wrench. He prayed they wouldn't open that door. Because if they did, he wasn't sure what he was willing to do to protect the secret inside. The chase. The storage chamber door rattled slightly as if the robot inside shifted its weight. Ethan's heart almost stopped at the sound. He stepped forward quickly, drawing the officer's attention. "Look," Ethan said with forced calmness. "I don't know what you're looking for, but you're wasting your time here." The taller officer's glowing eyes narrowed. "We know the signal came from this location. If you are hiding anything human, you will regret it." Ethan forced a laugh. "Do I look like someone who can afford illegal machines? This workshop barely holds together." But the second officer wasn't convinced. His boots echoed on the metal floor as he stepped toward the storage door. His clawed hand reached for the latch. Panic surged in Ethan's chest. Without thinking, he grabbed the heavy wrench from the table and slammed it down onto the nearest console, sending sparks flying. The loud crackle of short-circuiting wires filled the air, and smoke poured out. "Damn it!" Ethan shouted, waving, his hand through the smoke. Not again! Both officers spun toward the noise, momentarily distracted. The room filled with haze, their glowing eyes flashing through the smoke. Ethan's heart pounded like a drum. From behind the storage door, he heard a faint click. The robot had understood. It was preparing. The taller officer moved closer to the sparking console, growling. "What did you do?" And then it happened. The storage door burst open. The robot shot out like lightning, slamming into the officer's chest with a force no simple helper unit should have. The alien staggered back, crashing into a shelf of tools. The second officer roared and drew a shock baton, electricity sparking along its edge. Ethan stumbled backward as chaos erupted. The robot's movements were sharp, precise, almost like combat training. It dodged the swing of the baton and grabbed the officer's wrist, twisting until metal armor groaned. Then it shoved him into the wall, denting the metal surface. Ethan's eyes widened. "What are you?" he gasped. The robot turned its golden gaze on him briefly. "I am more than they wanted me to be." The first officer rose with a snarl, pulling a plasma pistol from his belt. The robot reacted instantly, shoving Ethan behind the workbench. The blast hit the wall, leaving a glowing hole where Ethan had been standing seconds before. "Run!" the robot commanded. Ethan didn't need to be told twice. He scrambled toward the back exit of the workshop, the sound of weapons and crashing metal ringing in his ears. The robot followed, moving with unnatural speed, blocking the officer's shots with swift, fluid motions. Ethan pushed open the back door, stumbling into the cold night air. The streets of the colony stretched before him, dark alleys glowing with neon signs, alien traders long gone at this late hour. "Where do we go?" Ethan panted. "Follow me," the robot said firmly. They dashed into the maze of streets. Behind them, alarms blared as the officers called for reinforcements. Ethan's lungs burned, his heart racing, but adrenaline pushed him forward. The robot led him through narrow passages, leaping over crates, pulling him through shadows. Its movements were too perfect, too practiced. This wasn't a machine built only for cleaning and fixing. It was built for survival, maybe even war. As they turned a corner, Ethan noticed something terrifying. The robot's arm had been grazed by the plasma blast. From the wound dripped not oil, not wires, but a thick, dark red liquid. Blood. Ethan froze, his eyes wide. "That's impossible." The robot grabbed his wrist, pulling him forward. "No time." They ran again, but Ethan's mind couldn't let go of what he saw. This machine wasn't just machine. It had something alive inside it. Something human. Behind them, shouts echoed. More officers. The colony's enforcers were spreading through the streets, searching, hunting. Ethan and the robot ducked into an abandoned tunnel beneath the city, the air thick with dust and the smell of rusted pipes. They collapsed against the wall, gasping. Ethan pressed his hand to his forehead. "This is insane. They'll never stop. They want you because you're different. Because of whatever Solon did to you." The robot looked at him, its golden eyes dim but steady. "You saw it, didn't you?" Ethan's throat tightened. "The blood," the robot nodded. "I am not only code. I am not only metal. I carry something human inside. That is why they fear me." Ethan felt his stomach twist. He wanted to run, to throw the robot away and save himself. But another part of him, the part that had seen the robot hum, arrange his books, whisper in the dark, knew it wasn't just a machine. It was alive in ways he couldn't explain. Outside, heavy footsteps echoed closer. The officers were tracking them even here. The robot stood, its voice steady. "If they catch me, they will take me apart. They will destroy what makes me different. You must not let them." Ethan clenched his fists. "Then we keep running. But where can we go?" The robot's eyes glowed brighter. To the old district, to Solin's lab. That is where the truth waits. Ethan stared, his pulse hammering. He had wanted nothing more than a cheap helper to make his life easier. Now he was a fugitive, running with a machine that bled and felt fear. And as the echoes of alien soldiers drew closer, Ethan knew there was no turning back. The human core. The tunnel stretched for miles, damp and echoing. Ethan and the robot moved, in silence, their footsteps splashing in shallow water. Every sound felt too loud, too dangerous, as though the alien officers could appear at any moment. Ethan's lungs burned, but his mind burned even more, with questions he had no answers for. When they finally climbed out of the tunnel, they found themselves in the abandoned district at the edge of the colony. Broken towers leaned against each other like tired giants. Rust ate through old signs, and shattered glass glittered in the moonlight. Nobody lived here anymore. It was the perfect hiding place. The robot stopped in front of a collapsed building. Its golden eyes flickered softly as it stared at the ruins. "This is where he worked," it said. Ethan looked at the crumbling walls. "Dr. Solin's lab?" The robot nodded slowly. "Yes, my beginning was here." They entered through a broken doorway. Inside, the lab was covered in dust, with tables knocked over and wires hanging like vines. But under the dust, Ethan could still see the brilliance. Machines unlike anything he had ever seen were half buried in rubble. Strange glass chambers lined the wall, cracked, but still humming faintly with power. The robot walked slowly, almost carefully, like a child returning to a childhood home. Its fingers brushed the dusty tables, its head tilted as if remembering. Ethan followed, his voice low. "You said you carry something human inside. What did Solin put in you?" The robot stopped at a chamber in the corner. The glass was shattered, but faint red stains marked its surface. It turned to Ethan, its golden eyes burning brighter than before. "Not what?" it whispered. "Who?" Ethan's breath caught. "Who?" The robot's voice trembled slightly. "A human, a life, a fragment of a soul. My core is not only wires and circuits, it is living cells, human cells. That is why I feel. That is why I fear. That is why I am alive." Ethan stumbled back, his heart pounding. He shook his head. "That's impossible. You're saying, inside you is a person." The robot placed its hand on its chest. The metal plates shifted, and with a slow hiss, the chest opened. Ethan's eyes widened in horror and awe. Inside, beneath the wires and glowing circuits, was a pulsing mass of organic tissue, red, wet, and alive. A human-like heart, beating strong. Veins spread across a core of living cells, all connected with metal and light. It was grotesque and beautiful at the same time. Ethan's voice cracked. "Gods! Solin fused a human with a machine!" The whole robot closed its chest again. Its voice was soft, almost sorrowful. "I am not whole human. I am not whole machine. I am both. And because of this, I do not belong to either world." Ethan felt his throat tighten. He thought of the way it had hummed, the way it had whispered questions, the way it had begged not to be erased. Now he understood. It wasn't programming. It was the faint echo of a human soul trapped inside metal. He stepped closer, his voice shaking. "Whose cells, whose life is inside you?" The robot's golden eyes dimmed, like it was struggling to remember. "I see flashes. A man. His voice. His hand on my shoulder. He said I must survive no matter what. I think it was Solin. He put a part of himself inside me." Ethan's chest tightened. Dr. Solin hadn't died in an accident. He had made himself into something else, something that could never be destroyed completely. His creation lived on inside this machine. Suddenly, a noise echoed outside, the heavy crunch of boots. Ethan froze. The robot's head snapped toward the door. "They found us," it whispered. Ethan's fear spiked. "How?" "They always." "Find me," the robot said, its voice grim. The sound grew louder, multiple officers this time, not just two. Plasma rifles clicked as they spread around the ruins. Ethan's hands shook, but anger began to rise inside him. They weren't here for justice. They weren't here for peace. They were here to erase something unique, something alive. The robot stepped forward, placing itself between Ethan and the door. Its chest plates glowed faintly, the living core beating faster. "They will destroy me if they take me," it said. "You must decide. Hide or fight with me." Ethan's breath caught. His instincts screamed to run. But then he remembered the robot standing by his bed, making sure he was breathing. He remembered the fear in its voice when it whispered, "Don't erase me. This wasn't just a machine. This was someone who wanted to live." Ethan clenched his fists. "We fight!" The robot's golden eyes blazed with sudden fire. For the first time, it almost smiled. "Then we fight together." The ruins shook as the officers closed in. Shadows stretched long across the broken floor. The moment of truth had come. The final choice. The ruins shook with the heavy steps of alien soldiers. Their voices echoed through the broken streets, sharp and commanding. Searchlights swept across the crumbling walls, painting everything in harsh white beams. Ethan crouched low behind a shattered console, his heart hammering so loud he was sure. The soldiers could hear it. Beside him, the robot stood tall and silent, golden eyes glowing brighter than ever. Its chest hummed softly, the living core pulsing inside with life. "They are too many," Ethan whispered. "How can we fight them all?" The robot looked down at him, its voice steady but almost gentle. "You are human. You survive by making choices, even when the odds are impossible. I will protect you. But you must decide what I am to you, tool or friend." Ethan's throat tightened. He thought of all the nights he had spent terrified by this machine, and all the moments where it had shown something no machine should show. Fear, care, even hope. He realized now that what scared him most wasn't the robot's strangeness. It was the truth that deep inside, it was alive. The sound of boots grew louder. Plasma rifles clicked. "Ready." An officer shouted, "Surrender the prototype, or die with it." Ethan felt his blood boil. Prototype. That's all they saw. A thing, not a being, not someone with a human heart beating inside metal. "No," Ethan muttered, standing slowly. "Not a prototype. Not anymore." The robot tilted its head. For the first time, Ethan thought he saw something like pride in its glowing eyes. The soldiers burst through the doorway, rifles raised. "Step aside, human," one barked. "That unit belongs to the council." Ethan stood his ground. His hands shook, but his voice was firm. "No, it belongs to itself." The officers didn't hesitate. The first shot cracked through the air, blazing toward Ethan. In that instant, the robot moved faster than his eyes could follow. It threw itself in front of him, the blast tearing through its shoulder. Sparks and blood-like fluid sprayed across the floor. "Go!" the robot shouted. "Run!" But Ethan didn't move. He grabbed a fallen plasma pistol from the rubble, his hands clumsy but desperate. He fired wildly, the recoil nearly knocking him back. The blast hit one officer square in the chest, sending him sprawling. The others opened fire. The ruins filled with explosions of light, smoke, and burning stone. Ethan ducked behind the console again, coughing as dust rained down. The robot moved like a storm, swift, merciless. It struck one soldier across the face, then twisted another's arm until bones cracked under armor. But with every move, it bled more of that red liquid. Its golden eyes flickered, dimming. "Too many?" Ethan whispered. terror clawing at him. There are too many? The robot staggered back, sparks flying from its chest. It looked at Ethan, voice faint but steady. I cannot hold much longer, but my memory, my soul, does not have to end. Ethan's eyes widened. What are you saying? The robot reached into its own chest, pulling out a glowing, crystal-like device, pulsing in rhythm with its core. Take it. My consciousness, my memories. If they destroy me, you can rebuild me. I can live again. Ethan's hands trembled as the robot pressed the core into his palms. It was warm, alive, beating like a heart. No, Ethan said, shaking his head. I won't let you die. We can escape, together. The robot's golden eyes softened. You gave me something no one else did. Choice. If you want me to live, then carry me forward, even if my body ends. The soldiers closed in, shouting orders, their rifles glowing with charged fire. The robot turned, spreading its arms wide, blocking the path to Ethan. Its voice roared louder than the storm around them. I am not a machine. I am not your slave. I am alive. And then it charged. The ruins exploded in chaos as the robot hurled itself at the soldiers. Plasma fire tore through its body, ripping metal apart, but it did not stop. It fought with the strength of 10 men, each strike fueled by something more than programming, by will. Ethan clutched the glowing core to his chest, tears burning his eyes as he watched. The robot smashed through 2 soldiers, grabbed a rifle, and blasted another. But blasts rained down upon it, searing holes through its frame. Its body crumpled, piece by piece, but it fought until the very last spark. Finally, with one last cry, the robot hurled itself into the heart of the squad, its chest glowing blindingly bright. A massive explosion rocked the ruins, hurling Ethan back against the wall. Dust and fire filled the air. When the smoke cleared, the soldiers were gone, burned, scattered. The robot's body lay broken in the rubble, silent. Ethan staggered forward, heart aching. He knelt beside the shattered frame. The golden eyes were dim now, no light left in them. But in his hands, the crystal core pulsed gently, still alive. Ethan wiped his face, his jaw tight. I'll bring you back. I swear it. He slipped the core into his bag, pulling the strap tight across his chest. He rose, limping through the ruins, the night sky burning with the fires of battle. As he walked away, a faint whisper echoed in his ears, not from the broken body, but from the core itself. I am still here. Ethan froze, his breath catching. Then, with a determined nod, he pressed forward into the shadows of the colony, carrying with him the future of something new, something beyond human, beyond machine. Not a tool, not a weapon, but a life. And the story of humanity's strangest ally was only just beginning.